Princess Liberte stands as the pride of the former emperor's family. She displays tactical brilliance in both warfare and state politics. The royal household mourns the passing of the former emperor. Political schemers orchestrate a plan to control the imperial throne. They choose Prince Oderi as a weak, easily manipulated puppet ruler. Princess Liberte Sormia Craw meets her intended husband, the Duke. She proposes skipping the wedding to depart for the north immediately. Duke Yulaha Prosta expresses surprise at her request to forego festivities. She explains her urgent needs and the Duke readily complies. Liberte finds the Duke's submissive and gentle nature quite amusing.
Rosemary, Liberte's maid, struggles with the immense task of packing.
The princess contemplates how to carry a precious family heirloom. Rosemary notes the high quality and beauty of the ornate box. They consider converting its value to money or keeping the gift. Liberte decides to keep the keepsake as her dowry substitute. Rosemary fears that the item might sustain damage during transport. The maid suggests asking the Duke to carry the heavy box. Liberte smiles warmly, finding the suggestion to be a perfect solution. Palace officials worry that the royal baggage train is too massive. They warn the emperor that the heavy load will delay travel. Emperor Oderi Chatian Craw listens to the logistics with a heavy heart. Liberte realizes her brother is being easily misled by the nobles. Oderi laments that he should have taught his sister more. She expresses her gratitude for his imperial kindness and concern. A formal bow signals her respect before the young emperor. Liberte points out the harsh environmental challenges of the north. She acknowledges the immense difficulty of managing a large caravan. The young ruler humbly asks for his sister's understanding and forgiveness. She requests a small personal token of his love to carry. The princess reassures him that a simple gift is more than sufficient. Oderi removes a precious object from his royal uniform. A glimmering black flower brooch is revealed as his parting gift. He hands over the sentimental item with great care. Oderi expresses regret that he cannot offer her a grander farewell. Liberte looks at the brooch with a soft-touched expression. She begins to attach the memento to her travel gown. She vows to keep his heart close, regardless of the distance. Her fingers expertly secure the brooch to the blue fabric. Oderi is visibly moved by his sister's sincere and loving gesture. She promises to maintain their bond through frequent correspondence. The emperor asks for one final hug before she departs. A soft, quick rustle sounds as they embrace for a final goodbye. A sudden, sharp blare sounds as trumpets signal the departure. An attendant reports that the luggage inspection is finally complete. Liberte seizes the opportunity to execute her secret plan. She orders the caravan reloaded, claiming the emperor's express permission. She firmly asserts the emperor's authority over the prime minister's orders. The heavy carriage wheels roll as the journey officially begins. Inside the coach, Liberte receives an update from the Duke's messenger. The party establishes a safe campsite as the sun sets. Princess Liberte exchanges a meaningful glance with Rosemary as they prepare for the night. A hand reaches into a decorative chest to retrieve a hidden item. Liberte carefully wraps a precious object into a plain white cloth bundle. The imperial caravan establishes a sprawling campsite under the cover of night. Campfires illuminate the various tents as the sun sets behind the trees. Liberte and Rosemary discreetly slip out from their tent into the night. The two women walk toward the central command tent with silent steps. Inside the tent, guards discuss the grueling 3-month march ahead to reach Nord. Duke Yulaha Prosta listens intently, his expression serious as the logistics are debated. Standing outside, Liberte contemplates the best way to deliver her secret written message. Rosemary stands loyally behind her mistress as they wait for the perfect moment. A sudden movement inside the tent causes the two women to pause briefly. Her attention is taken by a sudden quick ahem sounding as Liberte signals her presence. A silver-haired attendant pulls back the tent flap and invites the princess inside. Liberte raises a finger to her lips, signaling the Duke to remain completely silent. The guards are visibly startled by the princess's sudden and mysterious entrance into the tent. Liberte suspects that hidden soldiers are eavesdropping on their private conversation from outside. She asks aloud about the next village while discreetly handing the Duke a note. He reads her warning and verbally explains the 3-day journey ahead to a proper village. Liberte remarks that such a long distance is quite far for their current pace. She asks if the upcoming roads are wide enough for her carriage to travel safely. A note apologizes while asking him to keep the bundle safe until they reach north. Yulaha explains the terrain will worsen, agreeing to an early departure at dawn. The Duke is surprised to find another note hidden behind the first set of papers. He places the cloth-wrapped bundle onto the table for safe and immediate keeping. The silver-haired guard reacts with shock as the Duke and Liberte coordinate departure plans. The guards share a silent look, trying to process the strange and secretive meeting. A brief moment of stillness follows as the princess returns to her quarters. An arrow suddenly zips through the air into a wooden tent post. Riders storm the camp as Liberte wakes and shouts for Rosemary's immediate assistance. Rosemary draws her sword instantly, standing ready to defend the tent's main entrance. Liberte looks at the approaching mob and finds their massive capture attempt quite excessive. The princess rushes into the fray, her blade clashing against an armed assassin.
Rosemary saves Liberte from a sneak attack, striking down an enemy guard with force.
Blood sprays as Liberte dispatches an attacker with a single lethal sword strike. The enemy leader yells for his men to capture the woman without any delay. Liberte mocks their greed as they focus on selling horses for profit mid-battle.
She parries a blow and retaliates with a fierce, blood-drawing counterattack.
The princess wonders what foul deal these mercenaries made with the corrupt prime minister. She strikes another foe, questioning why they seem to have no fear of death. Liberte vows to fight on while wondering how many enemies remain nearby in the camp. Rosemary stands victorious amidst several bodies, showing to Liberte she didn't need any help. Nearby, the Duke is engaged in his own brutal struggle against the masked intruders.
Duke Ulaha offers a relieved smile after finishing off his last remaining opponent.
Liberte returns the smile, her face splattered with blood from the intense battle. Her hand tightens its grip around the bloodied hilt of her heavy sword. The princess moves through the remains of battle with a determined and steady stride. Light begins to break over the forest, signaling a new day's arrival. A tired pew sounds from Liberte as she stands among the many fallen. The Duke approaches her through the morning mist, asking if she is unharmed.
Princess Liberte stands bloodied, stating she is fine and suggests talking later.
The bearded man notes with relief that the attackers spared the horses.
By the fire, the bearded man expresses shock at their combat expertise. Liberte explains that Nord's distance from the capital caused their lack of awareness.
She reveals that battlefields and swordplay have been her life since childhood. The silver-haired guard is awestruck by her perfect victory while in a nightgown. Rosemary notes the desperation, while the bearded man scolds the guard's lack of manners.
Liberte observes that the men are fixated on her skill rather than the ambush.
The bearded man remains silent, his expression unreadable behind his scarred features. He eventually asks for the identity of the people who attacked them. Liberte surmises the prime minister intended to kill her and seize her dowry. The guards mention the attackers were strangely passive and solely focused on her. She admits she abandoned the luggage because she anticipated such an outcome. Liberte reveals the prime minister bribed her guards, and she even suspected the Duke's party. The guards and the bearded man desperately plead for the princess's trust. Liberte reassures them, noting their wounds prove they aren't working for the enemy.
She confidently asserts her strength, while the guards react with shock to her claim.
The bearded man warns that their current pace will delay arrival by months. He contemplates the risks of the main road, seeing no other viable choice. He reveals a hidden airship from Nord waits 5 days away by a cliff. Liberte is impressed by the North's technology and its potential for escape. He clarifies that the vehicle is not as versatile as she might assume.
The princess asks what powers the airship, showing deep curiosity in the technology.
He apologizes, explaining he lacks the authority to reveal the airship's power source. Liberte determines she must investigate the mysterious northern technology for herself. The bearded man asks for further questions, and she prepares to probe deeper. She demands his real identity, sensing he has been hiding his true self. The man is stunned as she reveals she has suspected him since leaving the castle. She points out his unnatural calmness despite the many strange events of their journey. She notes a true ruler would have questioned the attack before her martial skill. Her attention is taken by a sudden, tired ha sounding as the man yields. He decides it is finally time to stop pretending and reveal the truth. Bowing respectfully, he introduces himself as Isiris Brody Levitt, an aide to the Duke. The man invites her to address him simply as Is Levitt going forward. Liberte accepts his introduction with a calm and contemplative expression. She then asks why he was pretending to be the Duke this entire time. Is explains she will only understand the reasons once she meets the actual Duke. He asks what she envisions of the North, and she describes a freezing wayside. He admits that while common, that image is far from the true nature of his grace. Liberte looks on with realization as she processes this new information. She imagines the Duke as a massive, scarred warrior ruling the harsh northern lands. She wonders if meeting expectations would have changed things as she looks at a throne. Is insists the Duke never intended to deceive her and asks for her understanding. The group reaches a quiet village nestled beside a slow-moving stream and windmill. Is announces that they must begin traveling under the cover of night immediately. He reports that knights are searching for 2 women fitting their descriptions. Liberte realizes the prime minister is truly committed to seeing her dead.
Rosemary asks about her well-being, and Liberte offers her sincere gratitude for the concern.
The party proceeds in darkness, avoiding campfires to hide from their relentless pursuers. The caravan gallops toward the north with minimal rest to escape discovery. Liberte lets out a fierce ha sounding as she strikes down her opponent. The group dispatches the final attackers without sustaining any serious injuries or leaving traces. After riding through the rugged terrain, they finally outpace all remaining persistent pursuers. Her attention is taken by a sudden, relieved pew sounding as the group celebrates. Is Levitt offers a welcoming smile, assuring the women they can finally rest. Looking around the empty clearing, Liberte and Rosemary wonder what he could mean.
Ise reaches forward as a shimmering magical energy begins to glow from his hand.
To their astonishment, a massive airship materializes, and Ise invites the princess to board.
Liberte stares in awe, realizing this is the legendary northern airship Ise previously mentioned.
As she walks up the ramp, she observes the vessel looks like a ship.
Standing at the large steering wheel, Ise warns his passengers that it might shake. He places a glowing blue stone into the helm, causing the ship to fly.
Liberte questions if the entire vessel is powered and navigated by the single earring.
Ise explains the Dragon Tear Stone's utility for long-range communication and powering the airship.
Looking over the railing, Liberte admits she has never seen such large-scale technology.
Her attention is taken by a sudden loud wah sounding as Rosemary warns the princess.
The majestic airship glides silently through the clouds high above the mountainous landscape.
Ise predicts they will reach their destination in a week, shocking the exhausted princess. Liberte contemplates the incredible efficiency of Northern technology compared to their original 3-month journey.
She asks if such technology could be shared with the Empire, prompting a pause.
Ise explains the ship's reliance on localized barriers makes wider distribution extremely difficult. Rosemary interrupts to inform Liberte that her sleeping quarters are ready for the night. The two women walk toward the ship's interior cabins under the starry sky.
Settled into her bed, Liberte tells Rosemary to rest before wishing her good night.
Closing her eyes, the princess feels a rare sense of peace as she sleeps. A new day dawns as the sprawling white Nord castle comes into view. The airship docks at the fortress, and the party finally disembarks onto ground. Ise officially reports the completion of their mission to the assembled northern military presence. A silver-haired man introduces himself as Duke Ulaha Prosta and formally greets Princess Liberte.
Liberte is taken aback by his youthful appearance, noting it matches earlier descriptions perfectly.
Despite his calm exterior, she senses a cold, draconic power radiating from the Duke.
Noticing her fatigue, the Duke invites her to settle into her newly prepared chambers.
A dark-haired maid bows respectfully and offers to lead the princess to her room.
They follow the servant through a lush sunlit garden toward the main living area.
Liberte casts one last glance back at the mysterious Duke as they walk away.
The silver-haired ruler watches her go with a faint, enigmatic smile on his face.
Liberte remains silent as she processes her first impression of her future husband.
The princess is shown into a magnificent, sun-drenched suite adorned with golden furniture. Rosemary brushes Liberte's hair, and the princess remarks on the refreshing hot spring bath.
Rosemary expresses her relief that the castle's amenities met the princess's high standards. A soft knock interrupts them as a voice from the hallway asks for entry.
Liberte gives her permission for the visitor to enter the room without delay. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick gotcha sounding as the door swings open.
Adelia Lunos, the head maid, introduces herself and apologizes for her son's behavior.
Liberte realizes with surprise that the woman is actually Lord Alexis's mother from their escort. Noticing the family resemblance, Liberte thanks her for Alexis's help while Adelia dismisses him.
Adelia observes the women's height and worries that the prepared dresses will be short. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick swish sounding as maids begin taking measurements.
Adelia expresses excitement over capital fashion, complaining about the outdated clothes her son buys.
Adelia wonders if finding a partner would improve her son's outdated fashion sense.
The head maid announces she has finished measurements and will prepare a dress.
A maid delivers a light breakfast, inviting the women to request further assistance.
Liberte expresses her gratitude as Adelia encourages her to enjoy her stay. Tasting the meal, the princess gives her compliments on the delicious food.
Rosemary likes the region, while Liberte admits her prejudices about northern technology were wrong. Liberte admits she was among those who misunderstood the true nature of Nord.
Nord Castle stands majestically against the backdrop of snow-capped mountains.
Stretching after a long sleep, Liberte lets out a tired, sleepy yawn.
Liberte notes her exhaustion has made time blur during her recovery at the castle.
Adelia cheerfully presents the finished dress, noting that the hem adjustments are complete.
Holding out a dark floral brooch, the princess asks if it can be added.
Adelia admires the beautiful brooch and readily agrees to attach it to the gown.
Princess Liberte looks stunning in her new deep red evening gown.
Liberte apologizes for the extra work, surprising Lady Lunos with her unexpected humility. Adelia insists it is her duty and invites the princess to call her by name.
The princess graciously accepts the invitation to address the head maid more familiarly.
A servant knocks at the door, excusing himself to deliver a formal message. The man reports that the Duke requests the princess's presence in his study before dinner.
Liberte confirms she will join him shortly as the group prepares to depart.
The women walk toward the Duke's study through high-ceilinged corridors. Reaching the destination, Adelia bows respectfully and takes her leave of the women. Liberte takes a deep breath and signals Rosemary that it is time to enter. Her attention is taken by a sudden, rhythmic knock sounding against the heavy doors.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick creak sounding as the door opens. An aide announces the princess while the silver-haired Duke waits at his desk.
The scarred man looks remarkably familiar despite his formal appearance.
Liberte struggles with recognition, but a shocked Rosemary realizes the aide is Lord Levitt.
Levitt asks for their thoughts on his appearance after shaving his beard.
Levitt questions his look while Rosemary asks about his age in complete disbelief. Rosemary is stunned as Levitt reveals he is only 26 years old. Rosemary remains incredulous about his youth while Liberte finds the situation rather amusing. The princess observes the exchange with a calm, knowing smile.
Duke Ulaha watches the scene with an unreadable, stoic expression.
Liberte turns her attention toward her future husband's cold gaze.
Acknowledging the request for a meeting, the Duke invites Liberte to take a seat. A moment of silence stretches between the two future spouses.
Levitt observes the silent, tense atmosphere between the Duke and the princess.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick swish sounding as a package is presented. Liberte asks why he has not yet inspected the items she previously sent. The Duke explains he waited for her permission to open the belongings entrusted to Isiris. The princess finds the Duke's lack of emotional expression unsettling and difficult to read.
The Duke asks for consent to open the box, and Liberte gives her permission.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick slide sounding as she offers a substitute dowry. The Duke rejects the offer immediately, telling her to take the gift back. Liberte is taken aback by the blunt and cold refusal of her proposal. Clearing her throat, the princess prepares to address the missing imperial dowry more formally. Liberte explains her intention to marry him despite the loss of her official wedding funds.
She describes the circumstances preventing the dowry's arrival and asks him to accept her gift.
Liberty decides to remain cautious, suspecting the Prime Minister's influence has reached the north. Riding through the rain, she wonders where she can go if even this place isn't safe. Duke Ulaha Prosta understands her concerns but notes the unique situation in the north.
A stark message confirms that the proposed arrangement cannot be accepted. The Duke acknowledges her difficult journey and suggests postponing serious talks so she can rest.
Princess Liberte looks on with a confused expression, unable to understand his sudden kindness.
She ponders if motives are hidden behind his generosity, since kindness usually has a reason. Piles of gold coins and exquisite jewelry shimmer brightly under the light. A vision of a grand wedding ceremony shows the couple standing together at the altar. Liberte agrees to postpone their discussion, though she remains suspicious of his true intentions. The Duke offers to have her belongings delivered later and invites her to dinner. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick swish sounding as the Duke rises to leave. She stares at his gloved hand, her mind racing with unanswered questions and doubts. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft smile sounding as he insists on escorting her. Her attention is taken by a sudden, light swish sounding as they walk toward the hall. Walking beside him, the princess wonders how much she can truly trust this mysterious man. Her attention is taken by a sudden, loud shout sounding as a boy calls them late. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick thud sounding as the boy hugs Lord Alexis.
Alexis sternly scolds the blonde boy for his lack of respect toward the royal highness.
The young boy quickly corrects his posture and offers a polite, formal bow to Liberte.
Rosemary introduces herself as the princess's handmaiden while greeting the others in the room. Liberte notes how cute the boy is before clearing her throat to maintain her composure.
The princess formally introduces herself as Liberte Sormia Craw to the gathered group. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick sparkle sounding as the boy marvels at her. Rodel pulls her toward the table while Alexis insists he address her more formally. Liberte finds the boy's behavior endearing, noting he reminds her of a child named Oderi. Rodel proudly displays the magnificent meal he helped prepare specifically for the princess's arrival. Liberte is genuinely impressed, remarking on how absolutely delicious the entire spread looks. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft smile sounding as the Duke watches them eat. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick turn sounding as she avoids his gaze.
She feels uneasy, wondering why the Duke keeps smiling every time their eyes meet.
Rodel asks why she isn't sitting down as she struggles to process her host's warmth. After finishing the meal, Liberte offers her sincere compliments to the chef and her hosts. The Duke invites her for a stroll in the castle garden to enjoy the night air.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick swish sounding as they stand to leave.
Lord Alexis nervously asks if Rosemary will be joining them for the evening stroll.
Rosemary declines, stating she is perfectly fine on her own and needs no escort.
She watches the couple leave with a serious expression, perhaps sensing the underlying tension.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft nod sounding as she encourages Liberte to rest.
Alexis watches the pair go, questioning if it's wise to let them walk alone.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, rhythmic step sounding as they walk through the arches.
Liberte gasps in surprise as she catches her first glimpse of the spectacular courtyard.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, bright sparkle sounding from the lanterns in the garden.
The Duke gazes at her, asking for her thoughts on the beauty of the castle grounds.
Liberte admits she has never seen anything so stunning, even within the Grand Imperial Palace. She describes Nord as a strange place that completely defied all of her initial expectations.
The Duke asks if anything has troubled her since her arrival at the Northern Fortress. She expresses concern about the Emperor and asks if there is a way to send word. Her attention is taken by a sudden soft nod sounding as she learns letters are sent periodically. The Duke explains that Rodel arrived 3 years ago with dreams of becoming a Northern Knight. The Duke admits he initially tried to send the boy away but was moved by his tears. He explains Rodel's promise to return to his frail younger sister as a property. Rodel traveled to Nord alone, hoping to earn a title regardless of his young age. The Duke mentions a prodigy who became a knight at 18, surprising the princess. He identifies Izaris as the precedent for allowing such young candidates to join their ranks.
The Duke notes Rodel's transition to practical training, sparking Liberte's curiosity about his skills.
Liberte asks for permission to use the training grounds, which the Duke readily grants.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft step sounding as he prepares to speak.
The Duke proposes that they establish a routine of taking walks together every morning.
The purple-haired princess agrees to the request, accepting his offer with a small nod. From the following day, a morning stroll together becomes part of their regular schedule.
Their daily conversations remain casual, focusing on light topics and their upcoming plans.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick swish sounding as they spar at the grounds.
Rodel joins the pair in the afternoons, sharing tea and snacks in the karting.
Despite becoming accustomed to her new life, Liberte feels a persistent, growing anxiety. She is troubled by the Duke's silence regarding their official marriage despite a month passing.
Liberte worries that further delays will lead to accusations of rebellion against the Empire.
The Duke offers her a white lily, remarking on the beauty of the flowers.
A close-up shows the delicate white lily held gently in his hand. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick swish sounding as she rejects his gift.
She tells him she is confused by his intentions and lacks understanding of his thoughts.
Liberte reminds him of his imperial duty to marry her for the sake of peace.
She yells about her personal experiences on the battlefield and the tragedies she has witnessed.
She urges him to stop wasting time as a maid watches them from a distance.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick thud sounding as he blocks a strike. The bleeding Duke ignores his own injury to check if the princess is unharmed. He urgently tells her to flee the garden as he struggles to stay conscious. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick thud sounding as the Duke collapses.
Liberte screams for help while holding the wounded Duke as the maid looks on.
She cradles his head, her hands stained with his blood during the terrifying moment. The maid realizes with horror that the Duke was hit by the blade intended for Liberte. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick clang sounding as the maid drops her dagger. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick step sounding as the assailant runs away.
A blood-spattered lily lies on the stone path, abandoned after the sudden attack.
The black-haired aide shouts orders to gather doctors and everyone with healing magic. Guards successfully apprehend the handmaid responsible for stabbing the Grand Duke. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick turn sounding as the aide glares furiously. He harshly orders the guards to take the captive woman directly to the dungeon. Rosemary rushes to the princess's side, asking if she sustained any injuries. Rosemary comforts the trembling princess and insists on escorting her back to her chambers. Her attention is taken by a sudden, loud thud sounding as the aide slams his hand. He yells in frustration about how the Duke's marriage intentions have been met with tragedy. Her attention is taken by a sudden, loud shout sounding as he demands a response. The aide questions what happened in the garden while the Duke lies unconscious nearby. He expresses deep regret over the decision to accept a marriage with the imperial family. The man scolds Liberte for failing to protect the Duke despite her combat background. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick snap sounding as Rosemary stops him. Rosemary defends her mistress, pointing out the aide's disregard for the princess's emotional state. Liberte sits in stunned silence, overwhelmed by guilt and the traumatic events of the day. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick step sounding as the aide finally leaves. The frustrated knight commander punches the glass door in a violent outburst. Blood drips onto glass shards scattered across the ornate carpet. Camellia reports that the handmaid has been bound and thrown in the dungeon. The silver-haired man asks to see the commander's hand, ignoring his dismissive attitude.
Mardinica scolds the knight commander for wandering the castle looking so pathetic.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft swish sounding as he applies bandages.
He warns the commander to stay composed for the men and for Carlotta.
Rosemary offers a cup of tea to Princess Liberte to help her calm down.
The brown-haired handmaid notes that the princess must have been terribly shocked.
Rosemary sympathizes with Izaris, fearing she would lose her own composure for Liberte.
It pains Rosemary to see the princess in such a state of distress. Looking down on the room, Rosemary prays the Grand Duke wakes up soon. Sparkling magical water flows from a majestic stone fountain in the garden. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft splash sounding. Her attention is taken by a sudden, weary huff sounding. Lord Camellia surprises her, noting that her secret spot has finally been discovered. Mardinica offers his handkerchief, but she declines while asking about his training duties. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft chuckle sounder. Camellia, a 1st Division Knight of Nord, tells Rosemary that she looks tired. She admits to being particularly tired today, her face showing her exhaustion.
Standing in the garden, Rosemary confesses she has never felt this tired before. Two maids watch from above, wishing the princess would just go home. They fear war because of the princess, as Camellia suggests they leave now. Her attention is taken by a sudden light swish sounding. He asks Rosemary to go on ahead while he gets some fresh air. Her attention is taken by a sudden quick grip sounding. Mardinica assures the girl that he is all right as she calls out. Her attention is taken by a sudden soft giggle sounding. Lord Camellia hesitates, staring at her with a look of concern and confusion. Her attention is taken by a sudden, weary sigh sounding. Her attention is taken by a sudden, polite bow sounding. Camellia watches Rosemary walk away through the bright and sunlit palace gardens. Her attention is taken by a sudden, loud clack sounding. Mardinica stands in silent thought as the afternoon sun bathes the terrace. The silver-haired man looks back over his shoulder with a cold gaze. The two gossiping maids approach the knight, unaware of the trouble they face.
A close-up shows Mardinica's eyes filled with a terrifying and cold intensity.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, sharp flinch sounding. Mardinica addresses the two women, catching them off guard with his stern presence.
He coldly informs them that they are no longer permitted at the castle.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick grip sounding. The maids protest his decision, asking for a reason and questioning his authority. Her attention is taken by a sudden, sharp gasp sounding. He explains they violated the code of service toward their honored royal guest. Camellia mockingly asks if they want to explain themselves to the Knight Commander. He offers a letter of recommendation as a bribe if they leave immediately. Her attention is taken by a sudden, frantic scurry sounding.
Mardinica stands alone in the quiet courtyard after dismissing the troublesome maids.
He decides that it is finally time to report these events to his father. Her attention is taken by a sudden, weary huff sounding. Sunlight filters through the heavy curtains, casting shadows across the ornate room.
The black-haired aide stands by the bed, softly calling out to Yuri.
He worries that every passing moment increases the blame placed on the princess. Looking down at the unconscious duke, the aide pleads for him to wake. Liberte and Rosemary stand in a heavy, somber silence near the bed. Liberte is haunted by fears of the duke's death and Rosemary's potential danger. Her attention is taken by a sudden, loud thud sounding as she stands up. Yuri finally opens his eyes, staring up at the ceiling in a daze. The aide leans over him, advising the silver-haired man not to move yet.
Yuri weakly admits that he is far from being all right.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft brush sounding as he touches his head. The aide smiles with relief, noting that Yuri's complaints mean he is fine. Yuri learns that he has been unconscious for 3.5 days. He is shocked by the time lost and immediately asks about the princess. Yuri looks up as Liberte approaches the bed with tears in her eyes. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft drip sounding as she cries. Overcome with guilt, the princess tearfully apologizes and takes all the blame. Her attention is taken by a sudden, heavy shudder sounding as she collapses. Rosemary catches her mistress, shouting her name in a moment of sheer panic. Yuri watches with a look of horror as the princess falls unconscious. The duke groans in pain as he tries to reach out for her. He urgently commands the aide to take the princess to her room immediately. Rosemary cradles the limp Liberte, her face filled with deep concern and fear. The black-haired aide stands in silence, processing the sudden and chaotic turn. He watches as Liberte is carried away while the room falls quiet.
Yuri stares into the distance, his expression grim as he thinks of her.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick snap sounding as she wakes. Liberte sits up in bed, remembering the garden and the duke's bloody injury. Her attention is taken by a sudden, heavy thud sounding in her chest. A blood-stained hand clutches the fabric of a dress in a terrifying nightmare. A woman with dark hair holds another person in a dark, traumatic vision. A bloodied face stares back as a forgotten memory resurfaces for the princess. Rosemary calls out to her as the princess gasps and snaps awake. Rosemary asks if she is okay as Liberte remains in a stunned gaze. Liberte realizes there is something incredibly important that she has completely forgotten. She tells Rosemary about the nagging feeling of a vital lost memory.
Sunlight fills the quiet room as a voice asks if she remembers.
Liberte is pushed to remember as she looks around the sunlit chambers. Rosemary remains silent, watching the princess with a look of quiet sadness. Rosemary begins to explain what the former emperor taught her during a past party. Her attention is taken by a sudden, bright chime sounding in the breeze.
A 6-year-old Liberte smiles brightly while clutching a white rabbit plushie.
Her parents prepare for a trip, promising to return to their children soon. The nanny reassures the departing couple about the baby as the mother hesitates. Young Liberte is confused as she learns her parents are going out. The small girl runs toward them, calling out for her father and mother. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick lunge sounding as she grabs on. Her attention is taken by a sudden, loud cry sounding as she pleads. Her parents laugh at her rare tantrum, finding her behavior to be quite cute. Her attention is taken by a sudden, light chime sounding over the fields. The emperor and empress receive a warm greeting from a happy farmer. Young Liberte smiles brightly while holding a bundle of golden harvested wheat. The Empress giggles, noticing how much fun Liberte is having in the field. Liberte excitedly shows her parents a rice plant she finds very fluffy. Her attention is taken by a sudden, loud shout sounding from a distance.
A man rages against the guards, demanding an audience with the emperor.
The emperor turns around to ask about the cause of the commotion. An official explains that a man is causing a scene, demanding royal attention. The empress looks on with concern as the emperor faces the disturbance.
The emperor promises to handle things while a farmer pleads for his land.
A guard scolds the man for his insolence and orders him away.
The royal family departs, intending to resolve the matter on the next day. Despair consumes the man as he believes the royals will never return. A young Liberte stands alone as a terrifying shadow looms over her.
A crazed man lunges forward, brandishing a sharp sickle in his hand.
A violent arc of red blood slashes across the dark nighttime scene. Young Liberte stands frozen in shock, her face spattered with fresh blood. The girl looks up in horror, realizing her mother has been attacked. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft moan sounding as mother falls. Her attention is taken by a sudden, loud scream sounding as tragedy strikes.
A lone man stands in a dark study as moonlight filters Gur.
The emperor looks up with a cold expression as his official enters.
The official asks what punishment should befall the man who murdered the empress.
The emperor coldly demands that the killer be tortured to death and eaten.
The official bows and accepts the emperor's brutal and final order. Her attention is taken by a sudden, weary huff sounding as he leans. The emperor asks if a pair of earrings is all he have left. A hand reaches out to touch the black flower-shaped jewelry in the box. The emperor clutches the earrings tightly in his palm as he grieves alone.
In a memory, the empress shows him the earrings she just finished making.
She wonders aloud if their children will actually like the gifts she crafted. The emperor warmly reassures his wife that the children will love them.
A portrait of the empress captures her beautiful, radiant, and happy smile.
The grieving emperor weeps, wondering how he is supposed to continue living. Mourners gather at a rainy funeral as a coffin is lowered into the earth.
Standing in the rain, the emperor prays for his late wife's eternal peace.
The black-haired man looks away with a face full of deep sorrow. A narrator notes that Liberte appeared emotionless and didn't cry at the funeral. The girl's vacant eyes stare blankly, seemingly reflecting no emotion at all. The emperor pleads for his daughter, hoping she can eventually process her sorrow.
A man and a young girl stand together amidst glowing, floating lanterns.
The scene shifts to a grand palace ballroom illuminated by an ornate chandelier. A narrator announces the first birthday party for His Highness Prince Oderi. Raising a glass, the emperor invites his guests to enjoy the night's festivities. The crowd cheers loudly, offering their congratulations to the young crown prince.
An official presents specific items that the emperor had requested for the occasion.
The emperor tells his children he has a special gift for both of them. He explains the empress left these gifts for them as Oderi reaches out. The young prince babbles happily while playing with the black flower ornament. The emperor turns toward the purple-haired Liberte and asks if he likes it. The purple-haired girl looks down with a distant, hollow expression. The black-haired man kneels before the young girl, explaining the gift was meant to make her smile. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft whisper sounding as the man calls out to Liberte.
A narration box explains that Liberte remains silent long after the banquet had ended.
The scene transitions to a shattered mirror reflecting the deep sorrow within the young girl's eyes. Shards of the mirror fall away as the narrator describes a crushing sense of guilt. Her attention is taken by a sudden, weary huff sounding in the moonlit room. The man ponders when he last heard Liberte's voice and fears her perpetual silence. The young girl stands silently in the dark doorway, watching her father with vacant eyes. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick rush sounding as the man startles and asks what is wrong. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft brush sounding as she clutches his clothes and asks to learn swordsmanship. Her attention is taken by a sudden, light chime sounding as the man reacts to her speaking. Overjoyed, the man pulls Liberte into a tight embrace, repeating his thanks for her voice.
The man reflects on his initial plan to teach his daughter lightly as part of her royal education.
He notes that her intense passion eventually led him to teach her complex swordsmanship and battle tactics. The narration explains that he eventually began educating Liberte in the ways of politics and statecraft. The black-haired man looks forward with a calm and satisfied expression. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft wipe sounding as she smiles despite being on a battlefield. The man asks if she is finally free from her fear of blades as they stand together.
A dark shadow falls over Liberte as she confusedly asks what he means, having forgotten her past.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, weary huff sounding as the man leans his head in distress. The narrator admits that her smile felt fragile, like a piece of glass that could shatter instantly. A close-up reveals a single, intense red eye peering through the darkness. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick creak sounding as the man looks toward the open door.
Rosemary enters the room and asks if the emperor had summoned her for an audience.
Rosemary believes it might be best if the girl continues to live without her painful memories.
Rosemary explains that her memories may return if she lives by the sword, leading Liberte to ask if her father said that.
The brown-haired woman simply confirms that those were the words spoken by the girl's father.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, frantic rattle sounding as the girl's hands begin to tremble. Her attention is taken by a sudden, shaky sob sounding as Liberte laments forgetting her entire past.
Liberte cries into her hands, realizing she had forgotten something of immense importance to her. Wiping away her tears, the princess thanks Rosemary for finally telling her the hidden truth.
Sunlight streams through the tall windows of the castle as the morning begins.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, light tap sounding as Rosemary wakes from a daze. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft rub sounding as Rosemary wonders when she fell asleep. Rosemary turns her head toward the door, alerted by the sound of someone knocking.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick click sounding as Rosemary asks the visitor to wait.
Sir Levick greets Rosemary at the door and asks if she had a restful night of sleep.
Rosemary looks surprised and asks if the Grand Duke is indeed calling for her presence.
The aide explains the Duke wishes to discuss something, but Rosemary notes it is currently a difficult time.
Levitt suggests having Martin and Alexis watch the room so Rosemary does not leave the princess alone.
Relieved by the suggestion, Rosemary offers her sincere thanks to the black-haired aide. Her attention is taken by a sudden soft step sounding as she agrees to go after getting ready.
Liberty sleeps peacefully in her bed, unaware of the conversations happening just outside her door.
Her attention is taken by a sudden soft rustle sounding as Rosemary whispers a quick farewell. Her attention is taken by a sudden light thud sounding as the door closes behind her.
Rosemary encounters her Camellia in the hallway and they exchange polite morning greetings. Sir Camellia urges her to go while they take over the duty of guarding the room. Rosemary thanks him and turns to leave, headed toward her meeting with the Jick.
A quiet stillness fills the room where a quill and paper rest near the sleeping girl. A quill pen rests beside a signed folded letter on a dark wooden guest. Sunlight bathes the grand castle as Rosemary walks through the opulent, high-ceilinged corridors.
The brown-haired woman wonders to herself why the Grand Duke has summoned her for a meeting.
As she moves through the palace, she passes two maids engaged in a quiet conversation.
The two maids stop and offer a respectful morning greeting to Lady Rosemary.
They ask about the princess's recovery since her collapse, and Rosemary reassures them she is doing much better.
Rosemary continues on her way, her expression turning somber as she dwells on recent events. The light blue-haired Duke explains that a rumor was spread to protect her, painting her as a victim of jealousy.
His aide thinks the rumor is beneficial, but Rosemary finds the proposed motive for the attack a bit too convenient.
The Duke calmly sips his tea, noting that people will believe what they want as long as it ensures safety. Rosemary clenches her hands tightly in her lap, processing the weight of the Duke's political maneuvers. She expresses her relief that the hostile atmosphere within the castle has finally begun to soften.
Rosemary privately admits that she had been fully prepared to flee the castle with the princess if necessary. The Grand Duke looks at her seriously and mentions that he has a specific request to make of her. He encourages her to listen to his proposal first, making it clear that she is free to refuse him.
He asks if she would attend the suspect's interrogation to prevent any accusations of an imperial cover-up. Rosemary's expression hardens with sudden tension as she considers the implications of facing the attacker. Her attention is taken by a sudden, loud thud sounding as she slams her hands down and defends the princess. The light blue-haired man looks on calmly, reminding her that not everyone shares the princess's noble character. He emphasizes that her presence at the questioning is vital to prevent any further doubts from arising.
The Duke looks away momentarily, his face shadowed by the complexity of the situation they face. He admits that his original intention was to ask Princess Liberte to attend the interrogation herself.
Rosemary listens intently, the gravity of the Duke's request reflected in her steady, green-eyed gaze. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft exhale sounding as Rosemary sighs and finally gives her consent. She agrees to attend the interrogation, but asks for permission to check on the princess one last time. Golden morning light filters into the princess's quiet, elegantly furnished bedroom through the tall windows. Rosemary gazes down at Liberte, noting with a soft heart that the young girl is still sound asleep. Her attention is taken by a sudden, gentle squeeze sounding as Rosemary holds Liberte's hand and promises to return soon.
She takes one final, lingering look at the sleeping princess before stepping out into the hallway.
An official waits for her outside the door, offering to lead her down to the castle's lower levels. Her attention is taken by a sudden, bright flare sounding as a torch is lit against the dungeon's damp walls. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick step sounding as the guide warns Rosemary to be careful on the stairs.
The silver-haired guide offers her his hand for support, but Rosemary politely declines and continues walking alone.
He urges her to keep up the pace as they descend deeper into the cold, dark depths of the prison. They arrive at a heavy door where the Grand Duke and Sir Levitt are already waiting for her. Her attention is taken by a sudden metallic creak sounding as the heavy cell door is finally unlocked and opened. Inside the cell, a woman sits bound to a chair. The Duke coldly orders his man to wake the prisoner. The man named Martin steps forward into the center of the dark room to carry out the Duke's command.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, loud splash sounding as a bucket of cold water hits the captive woman.
The prisoner gasps and coughs, her dark hair dripping as she struggles weakly against her heavy restraints.
The disheveled woman looks up with a dazed expression as she finds herself surrounded by the royal officials. Standing in the shadows, Rosemary stares at the captive with a look of silent, simmering recognition.
An internal thought confirms that the woman before her is indeed the culprit who tried to harm Liberte.
Rosemary's gaze turns icy and sharp as she focuses all of her attention on the woman in the chair.
The Duke demands an explanation for her presence in the garden. She weakly claims she was merely gathering flowers.
A close-up reveals the captive's battered and sweat-streaked face as she endures the harsh questioning.
The light blue-haired man leans in close, demanding to know her true reason for trying to assassinate the princess.
Narrated thoughts question the woman's motives and whether she has any right to speak of the people's tragedies.
The captive woman erupts in a fit of rage, accusing the imperial army of burning her village to the ground.
She screams in despair, claiming her family died in the fire and that the princess is a heartless murderer. Rosemary bursts into a sudden fit of laughter, surprising the royal officials.
Her expression shifts to a serious one as she asks who gave the order.
The prisoner screams about the village, but Rosemary notes she was also there. Rosemary reflects that she understands the tragic truth better than anyone in the room. She reveals her past as a rebel, remembering herself as a young girl.
The light blue Duke explains that the order came from an enemy leader's incompetence.
Rosemary clenches her dress as the Duke explains children were used to start fires.
The brown-haired woman solemnly confirms that she was once one of those children.
The captive woman erupts in denial, shouting that Rosemary's claims must be a lie.
The prisoner continues her frantic screaming while Rosemary stares stoically at the wall.
Having said her piece, Rosemary asks if it is finally acceptable for her to leave.
The Duke grants her permission, suggesting that she should go and rest now.
Rosemary turns to walk away, leaving the silver-haired official standing in the shadows.
The silver-haired man looks on with a face full of profound shock and concern.
Later in the palace garden, the silver-haired official calls out to Rosemary.
He hurries toward the brown-haired woman, asking her to wait for just a moment.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft crunch sounding as Rosemary halts her stride. The silver-haired official catches up to her, his face filled with worry for her.
He gently suggests that they take a short break before they continue walking.
Overcome by the weight of her memories, Rosemary looks down as she cries.
Rosemary reflects on the relief she felt when Liberte appeared during the fire.
The two of them sit together on the grass in the peaceful palace garden.
A flashback reveals a young hooded Liberte snatching a torch from the girl's hand.
Rosemary holds a pink flower recalling how Liberte desperately searched for lost children. She credits Liberte as her savior, remembering how the princess prevented her death.
A close-up of Rosemary's eyes conveys the deep purpose Liberte gave her life.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, sharp snap sounding as the flower is crushed. Angered by the injustice, Rosemary wonders how anyone could dare to blame Liberte. Rosemary sighs deeply, the emotional toll of her confession evident in her expression.
The official tells her to forget their conversation and asks if she feels better.
Rosemary looks up in surprise as he explains that sharing burdens clears the mind.
They remain in the peaceful garden, the tension finally beginning to lift between them.
Rosemary offers her sincere gratitude, admitting that she feels much better after talking.
With a final polite bow, the brown-haired woman prepares to take her leave.
The silver-haired man stands alone under the shade of a tree, deep in thought.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft swish sounding as Rosemary walks away.
The official remains silent, watching her figure disappear into the distance of the garden.
The scene shifts to an office where stacks of books litter a wooden desk. The light blue-haired Duke tells his aide to speak if something is on his mind.
The silver-haired aide sits slumped in his chair, looking exhausted by the day's events.
The Duke teases him for acting foolish, while the aide finds the criticism harsh. Continuing his work, the Duke asks if the aide intends to remain silent forever.
The silver-haired man looks down somberly, still processing Rosemary's revelation about her past.
He asks the Duke if he plans to include Rosemary's confession in the records.
The light blue-haired Duke looks up, considering the weight of that specific political decision.
The aide admits he feels guilty for saying something unnecessary to Lady Rosemary earlier.
The Duke reassures him, expressing his belief that Rosemary is a very strong person.
He reminds the aide that there is a limit to his protection for him.
The Duke orders him to attend the next training session as he continues writing.
A faint, knowing smile plays on the Duke's lips as the morning sun shines.
The light blue-haired Duke warns Rosemary that she should also prioritize her own well-being.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft step sounding as someone approaches a door.
The brown-haired woman enters the room with a look of quiet anticipation.
Rosemary offers a warm smile as she realizes Princess Liberte is finally awake.
The dark blue-haired princess greets her attendant with a gentle morning welcome.
Rosemary looks concerned, asking the princess if she is truly feeling all right after her ordeal.
Liberte offers a reassuring smile, claiming she is merely suffering from a bit of exhaustion. Rosemary insists on calling a doctor if she worsens, while the princess apologizes for the worry.
A heavy silence settles over the dark blue-haired woman as she contemplates her situation.
Standing by a window, the light blue-haired man admires a bouquet of vibrant yellow lilies.
Rosemary places the flowers into a vase, mentioning she advised the Duke against visiting. She explains that the Grand Duke sent the lilies hoping they would brighten the princess's mood.
The dark blue-haired princess looks at the flowers and offers her sincere thanks to Rose. Liberte turns away to gaze out at the rainy landscape, lost in her own thoughts.
Rosemary watches the princess closely, silently noting her lingering sadness and fragility.
The princess suggests taking a walk in the rain to help clear her troubled mind.
Despite the weather, Liberte decides that heading outdoors is exactly what she needs.
Her attention is taken by a sudden soft hiss sounding as rain falls through the trees. Walking under a large umbrella, the women observe guards training in the courtyard. The two figures walk together through the rain, seeking a moment of peace outside.
Rosemary remarks on the lack of people around, attributing the solitude to the steady downpour.
The training guards notice the royal presence and stop their session in surprise. Her attention is taken by a sudden soft rustle sounding as the guards bow respectfully.
The princess acknowledges their dedication while the guards humbly accept her kind words.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick gasp sounding as Rosemary realizes Liberte is moving.
Rosemary pleads with the princess to stop, reminding her that she is not fully recovered.
Liberte explains her restlessness and promises she will not push herself too far today. Rosemary releases a heavy sigh, unable to stop the princess from following her impulses. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft splash sounding as Liberte steps into a puddle. The dark blue-haired woman reaches for a practice sword, determined to test her own strength. Her attention is taken by a sudden, sharp ring sounding as the princess lifts the heavy weapon. The black-haired guards watch with visible apprehension, unsure if they should intervene.
The sword falls from her grasp, prompting Rosemary to cry out in alarm.
The umbrella lies forgotten on the wet ground as the princess's strength fails her. Liberte stares down at her own trembling, empty hands in a state of shock. Her attention is taken by a sudden, heavy thud sounding as Liberte's hope begins to crumble. The princess realizes with horror that her hands have lost all of their usual strength.
Liberte despairs over her uselessness as a swordsman while Rosemary rushes to her side.
Rosemary helps the dark blue-haired woman up, gently insisting that this is far too much.
The brown-haired woman suggests they return inside immediately, and the princess weakly agrees.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft gurgle sounding as tea is poured into a cup. Now indoors, Rosemary serves tea and encourages the princess to enjoy the warm drink.
Liberte sits in a green gown, looking somber as she stares into her teacup.
She reflects on the impossibility of avoiding the Grand Duke for much longer.
Memories of Madame Lunos bringing an overwhelming amount of sweets fill the princess's mind.
An assortment of colorful cakes, cookies, and pastries sits untouched on the palace table. Rosemary notes the excessive amount of food, and Liberte agrees that it is quite overwhelming.
The brown-haired woman suggests inviting a man named Rodel to join their tea time.
Liberte approves of the idea and sends Rosemary to bring him to the room.
The princess offers a quiet word of thanks as she looks at the cookies. Her attention is taken by a sudden rhythmic tap sounding as someone walks.
A sudden sharp creak sounds as the heavy doors swing open.
The dark blue-haired princess smiles, asking if Rodel has finally arrived for tea. Looking toward the entrance, Liberte mentions that she has been waiting for them. Rodel excitedly pulls the Duke inside, urging everyone to start eating their sweets.
The light blue-haired Duke offers a warm, amused smile as he joins the table.
Her attention is taken by a sudden soft munch sounding as Rodel eats. As the group gathers, Rodel happily exclaims that the sweets are absolutely delicious.
Liberte gazes down somberly, dreading the need to face the Duke in this state.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft clatter sounding as her hands tremble. The Duke asks if she is all right, but Liberte insists she is feeling fine. He tentatively offers to leave if his presence is making the princess feel uncomfortable. Turning away, Liberte tells him not to worry as she clenches her green dress. Liberte is paralyzed by a sense of dread so overwhelming she cannot even think.
Fixed and unblinking, the princess's gaze is drawn toward a massive, vivid puddle of crimson. She lets out a sharp gasp, clutching her chest as a sudden panic takes hold.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, sharp clink sounding as she excuses herself. Liberte rushes from the room while the Duke calls out to her in concern. Her attention is taken by a sudden, rapid tap sounding as she flees.
A fiery red-haired girl stares forward with intense and glowing golden eyes.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, ragged huff sounding as Liberte stops. Her attention is taken by a sudden, sharp clatter sounding as she leans against furniture. Liberte runs through the hall, desperate to escape the suffocating feeling deep within her. She finds herself standing alone in the vast and silent palace training arena. A memory of her former weakness and fragility haunts the dark blue-haired woman's mind.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft exhale sounding as she reflects.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft hiss sounding as she grits her teeth.
Liberte despairs that our hands can no longer grasp the sword she has always known.
Looking down in absolute misery, the princess admits that she can no longer do anything.
Liberte stares blankly at the dancing flames of a tall brazier in the arena.
Her eyes reflect the fire as she realizes she has reached a breaking point.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, heavy tap sounding as she walks closer.
The princess reaches out toward the fire, claiming that her hands are no longer whole.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, crackling roar sounding as she touches the flames.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, sharp whoosh sounding as the Duke intervenes.
The light blue-haired Duke demands to know what on earth she thinks she is doing.
Tears stream down Liberte's face as she looks up at the Grand Duke in despair.
He kneels before her, holding her hands to keep her safe from the fire. The scene shifts to a quiet room where a fireplace burns late into night. The Duke offers her a warm drink to help her recover from the cold.
Liberte thanks him, apologizing for showing such a pathetic and weak side of herself.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft tap sounding as she moves the cup.
The Duke asks why she isn't questioning his actions or his presence at the arena.
Liberte looks at the teapot, asking if he truly wishes for her to ask him. She admits she was swept away by her own overwhelming emotions during that dark moment.
Liberte laments that she can now barely manage to wrap her hands around a teacup.
She reflects on her lost identity, having only ever known how to wield a sword. Looking at a wilted yellow flower, the princess asks if her current state is pathetic.
The Grand Duke insists there are other paths for her, even without her sword.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, sharp outburst, sounding as she screams in denial. Liberte declares she has known nothing but swordsmanship since her earliest childhood.
She laments having no purpose or identity without her familiar blade. In her nightmares, she remains perpetually trapped within a single traumatic day.
The dark blue-haired princess identifies her own choices as the catalyst for tragedy.
Traumatic memories now prevent her from ever grasping a sword's hilt again.
Liberte admits these lingering memories are the true cause of her grief.
The princess credits the light blue-haired Duke with finally opening her eyes.
A heavy atmosphere of grief surrounds her as she sits alone. She insists on total honesty given their impending marriage to one another.
Liberte expresses sincere gratitude for his protection before offering an apology.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft wobble sounding.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, sharp clatter sounding.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, heavy thud sounding.
The Grand Duke cradles the unconscious princess with a look of worry.
He offers a gentle, private smile while looking at her sleeping face.
Soft morning light illuminates the princess's quiet and peaceful bedroom. Liberte wakes up feeling disoriented as she sits in her bed.
She questions if she actually fell asleep in her bed yesterday. Rosemary enters the room, asking if the princess is finally awake.
Rosemary scolds her for her recklessness and mentions the Duke's intervention.
Rosemary explains the Grand Duke carried the princess back in his house. Liberte is mortified to realize she was carried while she was asleep.
Rosemary demands that she be informed before the princess wanders off again.
Liberte offers her thanks as Rosemary prepares to step out briefly.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, sharp creak sounding.
Liberte's hands begin to tremble uncontrollably as she tries to move.
She clenches her fist, frustrated that her strength hasn't yet returned.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, rhythmic tap sounding.
The princess sits on the bed, ready to receive her visitor.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft rustle sounding. Liberte lets out a surprise sound as she sees her visitor.
The light blue-haired Duke stands at the door with a gentle expression.
Holding a bouquet of pink flowers, he asks how she is feeling.
Rosemary walks alone through the lush greenery of the palace gardens.
Her long green dress brushes against the stone path as she walks. Her attention is taken by a sudden, rhythmic top sobbing. Rosemary stops, sensing someone watching her from within the quiet garden.
She releases a tired sigh while reflecting on the princess's condition.
Rosemary observes the princess's shaking hands and struggles with deep worry.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft gasp sounding.
Rosemary worries about the princess while Sir Martin asks what is bothering her.
The silver-haired man named Sir Martin smiles as Rosemary acknowledges her.
Rosemary apologizes for her reaction, noting she's been startled by his presence.
She realizes she's been running into Sir Martin quite a lot recently.
Sir Martin asks if her worries are about the princess's hand tremors.
Surprised, Rosemary asks when he first noticed the princess's physical weakness.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft rustle sobbing.
Rosemary is shocked that Sir Martin noticed the issue before she did.
Tears well in Rosemary's eyes as she struggles with her own feelings.
Sir Martin suggests the princess likely wanted to hide her weakness from Rosemary. Sir Martin suggests that because they are close, the princess likely didn't want Rosemary to worry, adding that outsiders often spot such things more easily.
The silver-haired man offers a gentle nod to the distressed brown-haired woman as she processes his observation.
Sir Martin tells her she doesn't need to return the handkerchief and should feel free to use it to dry her eyes. Rosemary accepts the gift, tears still welling in her eyes as she holds the white cloth close.
Looking back at him, she wonders if she is starting to rely too much on the silver-haired man.
The scene shifts to the Grand Duke presenting a bouquet of pink flowers to the dark blue-haired princess. Liberte looks at the blossoms with a somber and curious expression, noting the unexpected gift. Her attention is taken by a sudden soft rustle sounding as she prepares to take the bouquet.
He tells her to wait a moment, mentioning that the thorns might prick her and he needs to fix them.
Her attention is taken by a sudden soft rustle sounding as the light blue-haired Duke begins to bind the stems.
He carefully wraps a dark ribbon around the flowers to protect the princess's hands from the thorns.
He looks at her with a gentle gaze, announcing that he has finished preparing the gift. Liberte thanks him twice, her voice soft as she takes the safely wrapped bouquet into her hands. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft gasp sounding as she notices a flash of familiarity in him.
A memory of a young, smiling boy with the same blue hair and a flower bouquet appears.
Liberte looks up and asks the Duke if they have perhaps met somewhere before, a very long time ago. The Duke remains silent, a faint and knowing smile playing across his lips as he listens to her. He admits that he had assumed she would have forgotten their past meeting entirely.
Rain falls heavily over the mourning crowd gathered for the funeral of the late Empress.
He reflects on how seeing her then left such an unforgettable impression on his young heart. Young Liberte stood tall and dry-eyed in the rain, displaying a strength that captivated the young boy watching her. Her stoic resilience in the face of such profound tragedy came as a massive shock to him back then. Distant memories ripple and shift as the Duke recounts the day they truly met face to face. He explains how he often wondered what had become of that resilient child in the years that followed.
In a sunlit memory, the young boy turns with surprise while exploring the expansive palace gardens. He recounts the moment he was finally able to meet the princess once again in person.
Her attention is taken by a sudden soft rustle sounding as the young princess looks toward the intruder.
The young boy introduces himself as Yahello Rested Prosta and honors her as the princess. A heavy silence falls between the two children as they sit together in the garden, Liberte staring blankly ahead.
The scene lingers on the quiet distance between the princess and the boy on the garden bench.
Yahello asks why she is sitting out all alone when the weather is so cold and uncomfortable.
He tentatively suggests that perhaps they could take a walk together through the palace grounds.
Liberte stares at him without responding, her intense red eyes reflecting his hopeful and curious face.
Despite her cold and heavy silence, he felt a desperate urge to hear the sound of her voice. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft whispering sounding as two noblewomen walk nearby. The women gossiped cruelly, wondering what the emperor will do with a daughter who has gone completely mute. Her attention is taken by a sudden, light giggling sounding as one woman mocks the pitiful mute princess. Her attention is taken by a sudden, sharp chuckling sounding as the woman jokes about being adopted in her place.
Outraged by their rudeness, young Yahello scolds them and tells the princess she shouldn't listen to such nonsense.
Liberte remains silent and still, her head bowed as the cruel insults hang in the garden air.
Her attention is taken by a sudden firm pat sounding as the boy takes her by the hand. She looks up in genuine shock as the young Yahello suddenly intervenes to help her. Yahello urgently insists that the princess come with him, determined to lead her away from the negativity.
Sunlight bathes the palace architecture as the two children prepare to flee the gossiping crowd.
He pulls her away from the garden bench, leading her toward a quieter part of the royal estate. Bright light filters through the lush trees as they escape the presence of the cruel noblewomen.
The two small figures run across the expansive green lawn together, hand in hand.
Her attention is taken by a sudden rapid top sounding as he thinks about the hurtful things they said.
Yahello resolves that he cannot allow the princess to hear such hateful words for a single moment longer.
Her attention is taken by a sudden sharp huff sounding as the light blue-haired boy stops to look back. Young Liberte catches her breath, her chest heaving after this sudden and unexpected sprint. The light blue-haired boy offers a sincere apology for dragging her away from the garden so abruptly. He suddenly turns and runs off toward the bushes, leaving the dark blue-haired girl standing alone.
The young boy calls out, asking the princess to wait for just a moment while he prepares something.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft flutter sounding as he spreads his white handkerchief over a rock. The light blue-haired boy gestures politely, inviting the princess to sit on the clean handkerchief he has prepared. Her attention is taken by a sudden light rustle sounding as she carefully takes a seat on the stone. Young Liberte stares at him with wide, curious red eyes, clearly surprised by his unexpected kindness. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft gasp sounding as the young boy reacts to her intense gaze. He feels awkward just standing around and decides to search for something nearby the princess might enjoy. He runs off into the distance once more, calling out to her with a look of frantic determination. Her attention is taken by a sudden, heavy huff sounding as he returns to her side, quite breathless. A vibrant bouquet of pink wild roses appears, signaling a thoughtful and carefully gathered gift. Smiling brightly, the light blue-haired boy presents the flowers and asks the princess if she likes them. The young princess is momentarily speechless as she looks at the beautiful floral gift in her hands. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft blink sounding as she processes his gentle and warm gesture. He explains that he learns swordsmanship to protect what is precious, hoping to protect her from hateful words.
The light blue-haired boy offers a warm, innocent smile while making his sincere protective vow. Young Liberte remains completely silent, her expression one of profound and quiet shock at his words. He reflects on how she offered no verbal response at all, simply staring back at him in total silence. He notes that despite her silence, he felt her eyes were truly beautiful during that fleeting, intense glance.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft whisper sounding as her lips move slightly to form words. He is stunned to hear her quiet voice as she softly offers her thanks for the flowers. A woman calls out to the princess, her loud voice echoing through the lush and peaceful palace grounds. The dark-haired woman leads the young princess away, holding her hand as they walk toward the palace. Holding the pink flowers close, Liberte looks back at the boy one last time before she disappears. He watches her leave from afar, feeling a sudden surge of hope for a future reunion between them. Her attention is taken by a sudden, sharp crash sounding as a wine bottle shatters on the floor.
Years later, the light blue-haired youth reacts with horror as a tragic and shocking realization hits him.
He is devastated to hear the news that Altea Kra has officially seized the throne as the new emperor. He laments the fact that he likely won't be able to see the princess ever again after this. A deep sense of longing fills his heart as he finally realizes how much he truly missed her. Sitting alone in a massive library, he reflects on how she remains perpetually fixed in his mind. Her attention is taken by a sudden, heavy thud sounding as he hides his face in a book. He holds on to the memory of the beautiful woman he once knew so briefly in his childhood. A surprising and unbelievable letter from the Imperial Palace arrives just as he was picturing her smiling face. The formal letter contains a shocking and direct command for him to marry the princess at long last. The light blue-haired man offers a gentle and satisfied smile, finally seeing a path back to her side. He watches from the docks as a large ship brings the princess to his distant and private estate. Her attention is taken by a sudden rhythmic step sounding as he walks toward the arriving princess. She appears before him covered in blood and dirt, looking far more fierce than the child he remembered. He reflects on how short their time together was, accepting that their difficult past cannot be helped. Though disappointed her feelings for him faded, he remains by her side while she sleeps peacefully in bed. He believes that despite her trauma and cold heart, they can build an entirely new life together. In the present day, the Duke compares her resilient and beautiful spirit to that of a wild rose. Liberte asks with a curious look if his comparison is based on the thorns protecting her heart. Her attention is taken by a sudden soft slide sounding as he leans in closer toward her. He explains that like a wild rose, she blooms beautifully even when placed on the roughest terrain. The dark blue-haired princess blushes deeply, visibly touched by his sincere, poetic, and romantic words. Duke Rusted leans against the heavy doors, appearing deeply affected by his conversation with Liberte. His face is flushed and his expression weary as he struggles to regain his composure. Liberte remains sitting quietly by the window, lost in her own thoughts after their encounter. Her attention is taken by a sudden heavy sigh sounding as the Duke exhales in the quiet hallway. A light blue-haired aide spots the Duke sitting on the floor and asks if something has happened. The Duke quickly stands and dismisses the concern, though the aide notes he has let his hair down. Her attention is taken by a sudden sharp spark sounding as a tense energy flashes between the two men. Defensively, the Duke asks if his appearance is a problem, to which the aide offers a hesitant reply. Her attention is taken by a sudden light swish sounding as the Duke turns and walking away.
The aide watches him go, muttering to himself about the Duke's unusual behavior.
He reflects on how the Duke tries to act composed but is actually incredibly driven by his emotions. Her attention is taken by a sudden rhythmic step sounding as the Duke heads toward his office. Her attention is taken by a sudden heavy thud sounding as a massive stack of paperwork is set down. Later, the Duke works diligently at his desk while the aide observes him from a distance. The aide bluntly points out that the Duke has been acting very strange over the past few days. He notes that the Duke is currently struggling to even focus on the work right in front of him. He points out that the Duke becomes visibly flustered every single time he has to face Liberte. Frustrated, the Duke covers his face and tells his aide that he doesn't need to hear the details. He admits to himself that the aide isn't wrong, leaving him with nothing to say in his defense. Her attention is taken by a sudden soft blink sounding as the aide watches the Duke's silent struggle. The Duke looks at his aide with envy, wishing he could be half as cool-headed as the other man. When the aide asks what is on his mind, the Duke insists that he is thinking about nothing at all. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick tap sounding as he straightens a stack of finished papers. Stretching his arms, he thinks about how exhausted he has become from both the work and his feelings. Her attention is taken by a sudden, weary huff sounding as he worries he cannot endure this much longer. He decides to stop worrying for the night and pushes himself away from the cluttered desk. Picking up a lit lantern, he resolves to head back to his quarters and finally get some rest. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft click sounding as he reaches out to open a nearby door. Opening the door, he is startled to find Liberte waiting for him in the dimly lit room. Her attention is taken by a sudden, sharp gasp sounding as the Duke blushes in surprise at her presence. Liberte speaks up softly, apologizing for the intrusion as she waits for him in the shadows. Noticing how cold she feels, he asks what she is doing out here and urges her to move. He tells her the air is far too cold and insists that they move further inside immediately. Her attention is taken by a sudden light clink sounding as he prepares a warm cup of tea for her.
Liberte explains that she simply wanted to speak with him alone rather than waiting until tomorrow.
She mentions seeing the physician, causing the Duke to urgently ask what the medical report said. He notes that there are no physical injuries, but concludes that her condition is a matter of the mind.
Liberte looks at him with a serious gaze, firmly stating that his assessment of the situation is incorrect.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft rustle sounding as she looks up at him with clear eyes. She tells him not to worry while he retorts that it is impossible for him not to be concerned. Her attention is taken by a sudden, wide blink sounding as she processes his intense and protective words. He stares back at her, his expression a mix of frustration and deep-seated affection for her. Liberte clarifies that she is actually the one who is currently worried about the Duke himself. She admits that she is simply not used to having another person show so much concern for her well-being. Thinking back to their childhood, she decides that she owes him a sincere thank you instead of an apology. The Duke is genuinely taken aback, insisting that he has done nothing to deserve her gratitude. She explains that the things he said to her long ago helped her then and continue to help her now. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft whisper sounding as she admits she is unsure how he will react. She tells him that after waking from a long, inescapable dream, she simply found herself wanting to see him. Her attention is taken by a sudden, sharp huff sounding as the Duke blushes deeply at her heartfelt confession. Liberte explains that seeing him restores her breath and confesses to relying on him more than she expected. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft swish sounding as she pulls out a long blue ribbon. She explains that despite past attempts to discard the ribbon, a lingering heartache always prevented her from doing so. Her attention is taken by a sudden, soft squeeze sounding as she clutches the ribbon he gave her as a child. Sitting across from him, she apologizes for her forgetfulness and expresses her deep gratitude for his past kindness. She insists on delivering this message today, causing the Duke's eyes to widen in complete and utter shock. The Duke stands with a serene expression, touched that the princess truly